No, I never felt like I belonged here.
Okay, guys, so story time. I got home and I said, okay, you have A, B, C to do today. That means you need to stay in your clothes rather than getting in pajamas or something. I did A and B, forgetting that this is C. So, yeah, I was all comfy watching the Braves game. I was like, crap, I gotta get dressed again. But I did it. I'm here. Today's book is Glass Spare by DeStefano. This chair is just far too low for my stand. Maybe I'll get myself together. Maybe I won't. But anyways, this is the second time I've read it, and I am pleased to report that I actually liked it better this time. And I think it's because the first time I read it or listened to it, I don't think I listened to the whole audiobook. I was listening to this book and I said, okay, so I'm familiar with this, I'm familiar with this. And then I got to a point and I said, I have no idea. Like, I have never heard this before in my entire life, but it made things make more sense. Glass Spare, as I said, I liked it better. I didn't actually like the beginning. I liked the beginning, but then kind of right after that, like, okay, so the premise of the book is that we have a princess from a northern kingdom. Her name is Will. Her father is extremely paranoid about people knowing who his children are. So he has four. He has Owen, who is the oldest. I keep wanting to call him Blade. His name is not Blade. His name is Baron. Yes, I knew it started with B. Owen, Baron, Gertie, and then Will. Owen is the heir, and he is the only one that people could name by sight. The other three are basically hidden from the world. Baron, who hates Will because he has always felt second best, and then when Will came along, he figured, oh my gosh, now she will be the least favorite, only for her not to be the least favorite, but that's complicated. So he basically hates her. And there's Gertie, who she is extremely close to, and he is an alchemist. And then, yes, Wilhelmina. And she has been raised as a spy. Obviously, this is why the king doesn't want anybody to know who she is, because if people can recognize her, then she can't be a very good spy now, can she? The book opens with her on a mission to get certain ingredients for Gertie, because he is kind of the king's, like, alchemist. He's the king's armorer with all his alchemaic abilities, create stuff for the king. So the king wants this impenetrable rubber armor, and so Will is off trying to get ingredients. She encounters a bad dude, and she accidentally turns him to gemstones. This is what is the catalyst for the entire novel, is now whenever she touches people, if her heart rate is increased and she touches someone, they die because she turns them into some sort of gem. She is being challenged by her father to do something, and her mother and Owen are like, don't do it. Like, do not let him pressure you into doing something dangerous. But she wants to prove her worth to him. So she's off going on to do it when Owen comes after her to talk her out of it. He pursues her, and for me, it was a little difficult to understand the physical nature of where they are, but I'm thinking that they had to cross this dangerous river, and then they had to scale a mountainside. In her attempts to evade him, she loses focus, starts to fall off the wall. He is able to rescue her, and no harm is done, but then I guess in her further attempts to get away from him, she continues to fall, and this time when he saves her, I guess he comes in contact with her skin. This is something that I don't quite understand about her curse, as she calls it. Because usually when you encounter these sorts of things, people are affected when the cursed person touches them. not just if the cursed person is touched in general. I still am unclear as to where Owen touched her in order to make contact with her skin so that he was turned to crystal or diamond or ruby or emerald or whatever he was turned into. It seems that depending on her intent, depends on what sort of gem the person turns into. So I think he turns into diamond. But he dies because he comes in contact with her skin. The father sees it and banishes her because this was the heir, and he's like, you are dead to me, get out of here. So she escapes, and she's in pursuit of a character called Pawn, who's a marveler. I have to admit that I got super confused the first time through in terms of wanderers and marvelers. Wanderers basically remind me of gypsies. Marvelers are people who possess supernatural powers. Owen had told her about this guy named Pawn. He said, this dude can help you. We do not know, because she's like 16, so that's another thing is, I think it is explained in Cursed Sea, but as of right now, I have really no idea as to why she all of a sudden came into this ability at this one particular moment in time, because it wasn't like, oh, it's my 16th birthday and now I'm cursed. It was before her 16th or maybe her 17th birthday. Anyways, she's in search of this guy named Pawn. In her search, she finds herself in the southern part of the kingdom of Arrod, or Arrod. Her father is the king of northern Arrod, so she's now in the south, and it is ruled by this other really terrible king who refuses to ally with anybody. Will is in this city. She is discovered. Like, she considers herself to be a really good spy, that she can go unnoticed. However, this other person notices her, and he notices what she can do. And this guy's name is Loom. Loom kidnaps her because he is the prince of the southern king. He also has been banished because he knows what kind of a bad dude his dad is. So he tried to kill his dad. And then here's a bit of a spoiler. The dad then had Pawn curse Loom so that he could never set foot in his palace, or basically the kingdom again, without dying. Ergo, he could never inherit the throne. It is this cursedness that they're cursed hearts, because she has, from birth, has had this strange birthmark, almost like a scar running through her chest. So it is their cursed hearts that have drawn them together. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So he kidnaps her because he sees what she can do, and he believes she can help him afford to build up an army. So she turns things into gemstones. He can sell those gemstones in order to have the money to raise up an army, not only against his father, but against her father. Doesn't know who she is, but he believes that her dad and her entire family also need to be wiped out. We basically have this first, almost half of the novel, particularly the first third, like from the point where she kills Owen to a certain point, like I just didn't care. I didn't understand motivations, because he kidnaps her. She continuously tries to escape, keeps reeling her back in, keeps recapturing her. Yet, and this is what I don't understand. So I could understand him wanting her because of the value she can bring to his cause. But it is not an antagonistic relationship. He is benevolent. He is extremely kind to her, because he also not has a sidekick, but he has this companion named Zay, who we learn is his wife. It's one of those things where they're actually just best friends. Yes, they had been promised to each other, but then she got pregnant by a commoner, and in order to hide the fact that this child had no father, they moved up the wedding. So they're married. They were trying to pass off the child, Ada, as Loom's. And then this is when Loom said, oh my gosh, gotta kill my dad. And then in order to kind of save Ada's life so that people didn't think Ada was actually Loom's heir, they're like, we lied to everybody. But now both of them have been banished. So they're married, but there's no love between them. They're just best friends. But Zay, from the moment she meets Will, cannot stand Will. I like Zay because she's a really good antagonist, but at the same time, I still didn't understand her outright hatred of Will. I could understand her distrust of Will, although because she had seen the Queen, she recognized facial features, so she knew straight off the bat who Will was. So it's not that she hates Will because Will is the princess of Northern Arrod. I think she does hold a grudge against her in some respects because of that, but she doesn't trust Will. And my thought is like, what did Will have to do with any of this? She was minding her own business, trying to get rid of this curse on her so she could go home when you guys kidnapped her. They kidnapped her. Zay treats her like dirt, but Loom treats her like they're best friends. Like he hasn't done anything wrong and they all need to be on the same side, and he continues to defend her against Zay. For me, it did not make sense, and that's why this first portion of the novel was insufficient for me, was not interesting to me, because I didn't see the point. It was basically Will trying to get away, Loom always bringing her back, until we get to a certain point where I'm really trying to figure out what that certain point was where I started getting interested in the novel. And I think it was around the time when they are very close to Southern Arrod. Will and Loom go into the city. I honestly don't remember why. I think I zoned out for a minute. But I definitely know that they went to meet with a friend of his. I think maybe he was going to do some goodwill, and he was going to bring some of the gemstones that she had transformed to this person. But this person also had information on a disease called the Gray Fever, which is something that Gertie had suffered from, and it had affected his physical stature and things like that. Yes, Will and this other person are having this conversation, and they're sort of talking nuts and bolts about the Gray Fever, the best way to treat it, maybe the eradication of it. They go back to their hiding place, only to then see the city has been bombed. Will automatically knows it was her father because it was a weapon that only Gertie could have come up with. She is like, yeah, it's my dad, but me, I'm like, oh no. Because some information we're getting is we pull away from Will's perspective to see what's still going on with her family, and we learn that her dad has died. This stuff I'm on the fence about with this change in narration, this change of POV. Because in the end, I do see why it's important. I do see the necessity for it because it gives us context and depth and background that we would not have known otherwise. However, when we do pull away from Will, I find myself disinterested. I find the narration a bit confusing, like a little bit of head hopping. Anyways, but because we have this information about the fact that her dad has actually died, which on a whole other note comes out of absolutely nowhere, and we have no explanation as to what happened to him. All of a sudden he's just deathly ill, and then he's gone. So me knowing that the dad has died, I'm like, okay, no. It was not the king of Southern Arrod. It was Baron, because Baron is a tyrant. He is so power hungry, and he's also been going crazy because both Will and Owen have been declared dead. And so when we pull away from Will's POV, we see Baron being haunted by their ghosts. So he is going nuts. I'm just thinking, all right, so now Baron is king, and he's gone crazy, and he's also power hungry because he's always wanted to prove himself, which is, why he hates Will, because he's always felt threatened by her. I don't really know why. It's not like their father loved her more. I think it was because Gertie and Owen and their mother loved her. It was just, sibling rivalry. He felt threatened, and this was a person he could pick on because he was bigger than her. He's a bully. They've seen it. And Will and Zay are like, we need to go help them. Again, I zoned out, so I don't know what Loom was doing, but they go off to see what they can do to help, and they get captured by Loom's sister. What is her name? I can't pronounce her name because I can't quite understand her name in the narration. Espel. They get captured by Espel's guards. I don't know how. I don't know why. I guess wrong place, wrong time. The guards stumble across the two girls and they are thrown in prison. However, Espel has seen what Will can do. So she shares this trait with Loom, where even though she's the captor, she treats Will exceptionally kindly, given the circumstances. I mean, obviously, she has an ulterior motive, but yeah, she takes... So Zay, because she had been banished, is going to be killed. That is her punishment. But Will is removed from the dungeons, gets one-on-one time with Espel, and then is given a room? I don't understand it. But the thing about Espel and Loom is they were raised to be enemies. Espel is incredibly ruthless, and then she also has a bodyguard who is equally ruthless. I do like Espel, but I think this is one of these instances where listening to it was more of a detriment than if I'd read the book, because I would have been able to better understood behaviors. Zay, we are at her execution. She's about to be guillotined when knives start flying. We look up to see Loom has come to the rescue, only to then realize, so Will and Zay escape, and we realize that Loom is near death. So, okay, now we are finally gonna get to go see Pawn, because this is when we learn that Loom had been cursed. That his dad cursed him so he couldn't inherit the throne. And the only person who can save him is Pawn. They find Pawn, and he says, well, what's my payment? We can all guess it. It's Will. So he says, oh, I want you to turn this 1,000-year-old tree into diamond or whatever. And then what you have to do is you have to go back home and you have to discover the origin of your curse. I can't undo it. What I did was basically a typical act of vengeance. Whatever was done to you was inflicted upon you before you were even born. And of course she's like, what did I do? I wasn't even born yet. So he heals Loom, but there's a caveat. And he's like, basically, I guess he still holds some sort of power over Loom. And so he's like, if you don't do what I've asked you to do, I'll kill him. I'll make his heart stop. And so this is where the book ends. She is en route back to Northern Arrod. And I gotta say, okay, so the thing about iBooks is they work off of Wi-Fi. So if you don't download them and you move out of a Wi-Fi zone, it will stop working. I never remember if I actually download them or not, but I finished the book. I didn't know I finished the book, but it just stopped playing. And I was like, because I literally had gotten in my car. I think I'd been in my car for 5 minutes. And I was like, what is going on? Because I've had some radio issues with my car as well. So I was like, oh, great. Is it my radio? Is it my phone? Is it the internet? Is it iBooks? No, the book had ended. And so I was kind of put off by that because it was so abrupt. Maybe if I'd been paying closer attention, I was paying attention to traffic, which I will take any day. But yeah, maybe if I'd been paying closer attention, I would have realized I was at the end of the book. But this is also something that I remember being thrown off by my first read, where it was just over. And I was like, I mean, I know there's a next book, so it doesn't necessarily have to have resolution. But I think the way it was written failed to indicate where we are nearing the end. So yeah, my thoughts. I liked the book, but because I did not understand why things were happening from the point that Will was banished from Northern Arrod to basically the point where she got captured by Espel, I didn't care. There was a point where she had escaped, because this was the thing is, so there, Loom kidnaps her, gets her onto his boat. She escapes a couple times, and then she is like, okay, I guess I'm stuck here for a minute. They end up at this defunct castle that is no longer used in Southern Arrod because of the landscaping. It put them at risk for flooding and stuff like that. So yes, he takes her there because this is their hideout, and his dad would never think to look there, which I personally don't understand, because after he rescued Will and Zay, he was like, we can't go there because that's the first place my dad will look. I guess it's because now his dad officially knows that he's in the area. Anyways, they get to this defunct palace. She literally points out to him, you're gonna give me freedom? Like, you're just gonna give me my own room and let me do what I want to do? And he's like, yeah. Okay. She plans her escape. She steals the boat, only to realize that Ada is on the boat. And this was an interesting moment, because it's a turning point. It's like, who is she gonna be? What is she gonna do? There's all these possibilities of what she can do to this kid, and what she ultimately decides is, let's take him back. And so this is though when I started having problems again, because she's on the beach. She's like, all right, kid, go. And all of a sudden, like, a knife flies through the air and embeds itself in her calf muscle. Zay comes out, like, cursing at her and calling her all kinds of stuff. And, you know, there's all these accusations about what she thought Will was going to do to her kid. And my thought is, valid points while Will was gone. But it is obvious that it's like, I don't know, dusk or something. It is obvious that Will is dropping this child off and trying to go back to the boat. So why are you coming after her like she's trying to harm your child when it's obviously the exact opposite? So yeah, it just goes to these motivations of, why is Loom, I mean, I like his character, I do, but why is he kidnapping her only to be giving her chance after chance after chance from her escaping? Like, at a certain point, I'd be like, okay, I'm trying to be benevolent, but I have a game plan. I need you for the game plan. You're making my game plan more difficult, so I'm gonna lay down the law. I'm gonna put my foot down, and I'm gonna stop being nice to you because you're my captive, you know? Like, I did not understand where he was coming from. And especially because, as I said, he would defend her to Zay. And I was like, I would think you'd be on the same page with Zay at a certain point. And perhaps he would have if he'd known who she was. But throughout this entire book, she never lets him know. When he is sick and dying, she does reveal her true identity. But, I mean, it may be in the Cursed Sea, we will learn that, yeah, he heard everything she said. But as of now, yeah, he knows nothing. So that is a really great point of tension, because she starts to fall in love with him, only to then, when Pawn reveals that cursed hearts are naturally drawn to each other, she starts to second guess why he is drawn to her, why she is drawn to him. It's a great point of tension, because they're enemies. Like, she knows this can't work out. You know, they're both banished from their kingdoms, and like, if he knew who she was, he would hate her the way he already hates her family. Like, he hates her in theory. So yeah, it just really bothered me because I was like, just let her go. Or, lock her up in a dungeon. It just didn't make sense to me. But yeah, on the whole, I thought it was a really interesting book. I still don't understand the whole Owen death thing, except we needed Owen to die. I'm going to spoil this here. My first read through, I was like 95% sure Owen hadn't really died. Which he is actually dead. I think he gets, like, maybe dumped in the river. I actually don't really know what happened to his body, but in my head he gets dumped in the river. But he does actually die, and I think my certainty that maybe he's not dead is because it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, how he died felt so sudden because he had just gotten married. Like, there were all these things that were just happening for him, and then he's gone when he is a beloved character. He is a beloved brother. He's going to be this great king. So all of those aspects definitely lend to the tragedy of his death and make his death that much better and more important to the novel. But I was like, Will is going to come back and realize that everything is fine and she didn't need to leave. I don't know, because maybe her dad tricked her or something. I don't know. There we go. Hope you enjoyed this review. I hope it made sense to you, and I'll see you later. Bye.